Taming the High Cost of College, Ep007.
You have kids, they grow up, and before you know it, it's time to plan for college.
Where do you start?
How much is it going to cost?
Will you qualify for financial aid?
Should you be looking into scholarships?
When will you be able to retire?
What about student loans?
The list of questions is never ending. The good news is, all the answers are right here. Welcome to the Taming the High Cost of College podcast. Here is your host, certified financial planner, Brad Baldridge.
Hello, and welcome to Taming the High Cost of College. My name is Brad Baldridge. I'm your host, and today we're going to have a great interview with Erik Lofdahl. He is the founder of Midwest Collegiate Scouting, and he's going to give us a lot of great information about being a student athlete and how to play your sport in college. So if you happen to be a parent and you have a high school kid that's doing well enough in a sport that you think they might have a shot at playing for a college team, whether it's at a high level, a Division I, full scholarship kind of athlete, or just a kid that's going to maybe go on and play for a small school and not be the superstar, but just wants to extend their athletic career, or maybe they just want to get a little bit of leverage at a Division III type school, you need to listen to this next interview. We got about 50 minutes with Erik, and there's lots of great nuggets of information in there. So without much ado, we're going to jump it in with Erik. All right, here today we're going to talk with Erik Lofdahl. He is an expert on the sports process when it comes to college, and he also founded a company, Midwest Collegiate Scouting. So welcome, Erik.
Hi, Brad. How are you?
I'm doing well. So before we jump into all the technical stuff about recruiting, why don't you give a little bit about your background? How did you come to be involved in the college athlete process?
Okay. Well, inadvertently, I was involved in the recruiting process as a high school coach. My background was fairly short-lived. It revolved around probably the best soccer player in the Green Bay area where I'm from, who was the All-Area Player of the Year. He was on the state ODP team. He was top 5 in his class, and he had a massive ACT, and I couldn't believe he wasn't getting recruited, meaning I really didn't know or understand the process. From high school, I transitioned to college, where I was at a Division III program, and I would get profile sheets across my desk. And I talked to the head coach at the time, asked if I could recruit these prospects, and I did. And that's where I learned the things that colleges will do, even at the Division III level, to have a winning program, because it's actually free advertising, if you will. At that same time, when I transitioned out of coaching because of my role as a parent, I came across a group that was actually based in the Cedarburg area that helped market athletes. And 20 years later, here I am with my own company, my own group of athletes that I've worked with, and we're entering now 9 going on, 10 years.
All right, so your company actually focuses on helping
student athletes.
Student athletes, so that would be high school students?
High school student athletes who want to transition into college.
Okay, so you're well-versed in the NCAA and all that kind of stuff, and how, what you need to do to take your game to the next level.
Right, yeah, and I've worn every hat, as a high school coach, a college coach, and I'm also a parent of a senior, so I've been going through the process with him actually since he was a freshman.
Wow, that's great. So let's jump into it a little bit. What is it, kind of in a broad overview, what is it about athletics? I mean, why would you even want to be a college athlete? I mean, what's the draw for some or most, or what's your opinion on?
Sure. It depends on each family and each student athlete, a little bit to their skill set, if you will. For a lot of athletes, it's the draw of athletics in college, taking their game, in a cliche saying, to the next level, if you will. The more practical feeling is I want to play on scholarship. There's a nice ring to that. Parents are looking for a discount wherever they can, and if athletics is one of those ways to get it, then why not? A lot of times what they don't think about are the other kind of benefits that can go along with it. Reduced admission standards. If you're a good enough football player, for example, you could go to Harvard with a 3.0 and a 23 ACT if they want to get you in. So there's a lot of perks to being a student athlete at the next level.
Right, and I would guess that those perks come at a cost, typically. You need to obviously be part of a team and travel. And what's a typical commitment for a student athlete?
Well, usually if you're at a Division I level, it's all usually fairly defined as about 22 hours a week. And I guess you need to look at the athletic piece in college like it's a part-time job. Getting to that point is years of commitment, hundreds to thousands of miles, and probably thousands to $10,000s of dollars in reality.
Right. And I guess I see that a lot. There's a lot of athletes today that are involved in club sports and high school sports and trainers and additional medical professionals and all kinds of things where they're putting a lot of time and effort into it. So how does the process work? When should you start getting involved in, I guess, the college recruiting process?
Sure. Well, the NCAA will actually define that a student athlete is recruitable and can be a prospect as early as 7th and 8th grade. Now, that to me doesn't mean that you need to start that process, but the reality is a college coach at the very highest level can actually purchase a list of kids who are maybe ranked the best 100 7th grade basketball players in the country. So if you're not on that list, then it really to me becomes, when does your student athlete make varsity for their given sport? And from that time frame moving forward is, I think, when you need to start at least exploring the possibility of marketing that athlete, if you will, or if not, starting to market the athlete because of the speed at which the process is moving.
Okay, so you mentioned, I caught a little hint in there. You said market the athlete.
Right.
So if I'm on that list, I'm at top 100 in the nation for basketball. I'm guessing people know about me because... Yeah. But if I'm not on that list, you're saying I may need to market. Is that what you just told me?
Yeah, absolutely. Give you an example. When I was watching TV years ago, I had to be pretty young because it was the Johnny Carson show, and I think I was up a little bit late. They had a young man on by the name of Damon Bailey. And the reason they had him on is he was considered the best 8th grade basketball player in the country. He was from Indiana. He went to Indiana eventually and played for Bobby Knight, which tells you how long ago this was. He didn't really need any help. But there are student athletes all over the country, depending on where you live. That's an issue, more so probably in Wisconsin, that are really quality athletes, but because of where they are, the sport they play, maybe their ability to either play club or not play club, that there's a lot of kind of things that will impact their ability to be evaluated. Okay? So what you want to understand or need to understand is if you're not evaluated, nothing's really ever going to happen. So you need to figure out how long is it going to take for me to compete with the places that get a lot of recruiting. Kids in Florida, New York, New Jersey, Texas, California, where there's large populaces, right? And there's a lot of colleges and a lot of opportunities to be seen comparatively because, coaches are always producing scholarship athletes. That's where everybody starts. They don't generally start in Sussex Hamilton. They don't start in Green Bay. They're not starting in Marquette, Michigan. You just don't see that. So that's kind of part of our issue here. And we're kind of held to, well, if this is what they're doing in these other locations, finding these athletes, and that's my true competition, what do I need to do? Well, if they're already getting looked at as freshmen and sophomores, right, then I probably need to try and get myself into that kind of same pool of evaluated athletes.
Okay, so I'm certainly not a sports expert. That's why I built a relationship with you and have you around. So we have a sophomore, let's say, that just started playing varsity, and a lot of sophomores aren't real sure about what they're doing as far as college is concerned. They're saying, well, yeah, I'd like to play, but I don't know where, and I don't know what my major is going to be, and a lot is up in the air from that aspect. But what are some things that parents should start to do, maybe at the sophomore level, if it looks like it's a possibility that it's something we want to do?
Okay. I think the first step is have as honest a conversation as you can with a 15 or 16-year-old about what it is they want, right? Everyone's at a different maturity level. Some kids may have actually identified what they believe they want to do, while others don't. So you want to at least have that conversation. And I guess you can do it simply put by asking a very simple question. On a scale of 1 to 10, how bad would you say you want to play college athletics? And obviously 1 being low, 10 being high, the closer to 10, the more likely it makes sense for you to put forth some kind of effort. So then the next step is to kind of do a little bit of research about the recruiting process itself. A good place to start would be the NCAA website. And what you would want to look for there is actually the NCAA guide for college-bound student athletes.
All right, so there's a guide there. I will put a link in the show notes directly to that website and that document. So you can hit the website and we'll have that for you.
And it's free, and they have a PDF that you can actually download to your computer. And the great part of that is it actually gives you a lot of the definitions of what's a contact period, what's a dead period, what's an evaluation period. So it helps you understand the language that coaches use. Even better, it gives you a kind of a 4-year breakdown academically of the course load that you need to follow to make sure that your student athlete's actually going to be academically eligible. Because you could be that top 50 kid in the country at your sport. If you don't meet the NCAA guide or requirements to play academically, you won't play.
So let's stick with the timeline. There's lots of things I want to follow up on that question, but in the timeline now. So I have a sophomore.
Right.
I say, all right, I think we're interested. I've talked to my student. He's excited about the idea. He says, I'd love to do it. I want to make it happen. So now we're saying, okay, what's the next step now? We've got a lot of interest as far as making it happen, as far as we can tell. And so what do we do next?
Depending on who you're asked, they're going to tell you, well, identify, the schools that you think make the most sense. Okay. I will disagree with that because this is a marketing process, and any product that you're marketing is successful because of touches, right? How much contact with the end user can you generate? Okay. So if you pick, and I'll just again use football, 30 schools, and there's 120 some that give Division I scholarships, you've reduced your possibilities by 75% or 3/4. You've removed any possibility because you don't want to pursue those programs. When in reality, those programs are doing quite the opposite. A large program like the University of Wisconsin will, just at a minimum, evaluate between 1,500 to 2,500 kids in a class.
All right, so they start with maybe 2,500 different athletes that they would consider?
In a particular grade.
In a particular grade, okay.
Yeah, not overall, just a grade.
Okay, and then they funnel it down to typically 12 or 15 or 20?
25 maximum that they'll actually offer.
Okay.
So it's bad math, right? It's kind of like going to Vegas. Vegas expects to win. They don't expect you to win.
Okay. All right, so it sounds to me like you're saying we need to start touching more schools, and that's what you mean by marketing?
Correct.
So how do you market? What does that mean?
There's a few ways. Obviously, I'm partial to individuals reaching out to someone like me to help them through the process. If that's not your cup of tea, then what you're going to need to do is identify who recruits the area that you're involved in. If you're not aware of who that is, then you can ask your high school coach. They may be able to give you some guidance there. You need to find out who the recruiting coordinator is for each program, and then you want to contact those individuals. You can do it by mail, snail mail, or you can do it through email.
So is the marketing recruiting process the same in all sports?
Yeah, it's the same premise because it's marketing. There's not a lot of different twists to it. Some people will mail DVDs and make highlight films. Others will build websites and direct them to websites. Some of the individuals get very creative, but usually anything that's more personal in nature will generally, probably benefit the most.
Right. So in my work with students and families, I have a lot of dads say, well, I played football, so I know what I'm doing. And he's a good kid. He's been in the newspaper a few times. So I get, that should be enough. We're just going to wait now for the phone to ring. Some coaches are going to find him and recruit him. What's your response to that concept?
I guess my first question is WTMJ a nationally syndicated television station? WGN is, but is TMJ. So if you've been on TMJ, the odds are only the colleges that are in Milwaukee would have had a chance to identify you. And then the next question is the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel a nationally syndicated newspaper like USA Today, the Wall Street Journal, New York Times? If they're not, then again, the breadth and the width of that kind of local media probably doesn't really do much good for you. And again, I'll go back to football. If you want to play Division I, you got one crack at it here in the state of Wisconsin. That's it. And there's no Division II programs, then there's only Division III. So if the goal is to obtain a scholarship and you want to do it, then you've got to go to Wisconsin, or it's not going to happen here in the state.
Okay. So is that true of other states? I mean, how many?
There's about 124 Division 1A programs. There's another sub-level called Division 1AA, or it used to be 1AA. It's now D1FCS.
Okay.
There's Division 2. There's Division 3. There's well over 750 college programs out there just in football. And then if you look at basketball, there's actually more. There's almost 300 opportunities in men's and women's basketball at Division 1.
What if you're in a more obscure sport like I don't know, rowing or lacrosse or, I mean, you know more about the sports than I do, but if you're in an obscure sport or hockey.
Right. Hockey is tighter. And, every sport has kind of their nuance. Hockey, for example, the nuance is a lot of times you don't transition from high school to college. You go to high school to what's called juniors, and then you would transition to college if you don't somehow make it to professional hockey.
Okay.
And you're seeing some of that now in men's and women's soccer, where kids are opting out of high school soccer to play what's it called, academy soccer. About half the kids that go Division I for boys and girls will transition from academy programs versus high school programs. So you're seeing kids give up their high school athletic career to travel, play locally for what's now called FC Wisconsin Nationals, and spend probably annually about $6,000 with fees and travel costs to play at the highest level possible for the intention of playing Division I.
Okay. So now there's another, I guess, subtlety, and I guess I've seen that with my son. He's only 10 right now, but as we were pursuing an opportunity for him to play basketball, the coaches were talking about whether or not he was going to play varsity sports, which kind of shocked me because, I mean, he's 10, and we're not really worried about whether he's going to play varsity. We're worried about whether or not he's actually going to get to play today on the team that that he wants to practice with and participate with. So it seems like it's becoming a little more pressure or a little more focus than it used to be, where I think I've seen, and when people say, should I focus on a particular sport so that I can be that best I can be? Is that something that we should or want to be doing?
I think that's very much a family decision. If you're asking Coach A, he may want you to be a single sport athlete, whereas Coach B might want you to be a multi-sport athlete. There's a lot of different philosophies out there. I think the key is keeping the student athlete from the coach's perspective in a competitive setting, because that's what they're looking for. How do you compete? Now, there is a strong push in soccer for, if you do academy, you're just going to do that 9 months out of the year. You're not likely to play another sport, right? The same with club hockey or travel hockey, AAA, and the USHL and programs like that. You see it somewhat in club volleyball, where there's a chance to transition away from high school completely and just do club. But a lot of the recruiting will be around the club aspects, because club's not playing when college is playing. High school is playing when college is playing. So it can restrict the ability of a college coach to get out and see and evaluate a student athlete. So non-high school sports are beginning to kind of be the norm. And if you play basketball, the vast majority of evaluation is done through the AAU circuit, since you mentioned your son.
Right. Okay.
And that circuit is not run at the same time as high school. It's actually, you've got big evaluation periods in the spring and then in July.
Okay. So it sounds like there's a lot to learn, and it's very sport specific depending on...
It can be, absolutely, yes.
Okay. So we're going to market. We've already figured that out. So what's the next step in the process? Let's say we do a good job of marketing.
Right.
And we discover 5 or 6 programs that seem like they're interested in us. First of all, that seem like we're interested because they're sending us letters. How do we know if they're really interested in us? How do we, what's the next step in the process?
Sure. What schools will probably do, especially if you're an underclassman in your sport, and there are restrictions in that as to what they can do, which is why you want to read the NCAA guide for college-bound student athletes, because it varies by sport. But what they're probably going to be pushing you for is to come to a camp. Okay. So what you want to do is make sure that there's been some type of evaluation of your athlete before you go to a camp, because you don't want to go to a camp with the intention of paying $350 for a T-shirt and a few nights over at the college university. You actually want to be seen and they know who you are. So if you've gotten past kind of the, I was at camp phase, and now let's say September 1st of the junior year where activity can really start for most sports, what you're looking for is the type of information you're receiving, the frequency of that information, and then not just the type, but I guess there's a difference between Dear Prospect and Dear Johnny or Dear Susie.
Okay, so you're saying that usually the more they want you, the more they're actually focusing on...
Well, they actually know who you are.
Know who you are. They're more personal.
Right. exactly.
Okay.
They know your name isn't Dear Prospect.
Right.
Right. And then they'll send kind of an introduction. They'll send a questionnaire with that kind of introductory letter. They're going to ask for you to send the questionnaire back, which is a litmus test, right? If you don't send it back, then you're not interested. And a lot of times now they'll just ask you to go to their website and fill out their online questionnaire, which is again a litmus test. If you haven't taken the time to go to fill out that online questionnaire, they're assuming that you're not interested. So that 5 or 6 schools, if you don't do those things, could be cut in half.
All right, so we need to stay in contact and do what the colleges are asking.
Right.
And this could start as soon as the junior year, you're saying?
Well, it can actually, by definition, start as early as 7th and 8th grade.
Okay, but for most athletes,
ideally,
sophomore, junior year?
For the most part, sophomore, junior year, yeah.
Okay. When are most colleges making their decisions and actively recruiting? I mean, as an example, if you've got a high school senior and you're now sending in your applications for admission, are the coaches talking to you then?
They're almost done by then.
They're almost done by then. Okay,
yeah.
so
at the Division I level, I don't want to throw a specific percentage out there, but I'd say the vast, vast majority of Division I offers occur sometime during the junior year and even prior to. I'll just throw this out there. Again, I use football a lot because it's the biggest moneymaker there is. I would say without reservation, 100% of all available scholarships in Division I football have been offered prior to August 1st of the senior year at the highest level, Division I FBS.
Okay.
So if you get one from that program your senior year, it just means someone else said no and they went down the board and offered you.
So they're making their first choices before the senior year even starts.
Without fail.
So that means you would need to be doing your marketing early in your junior year or maybe even sophomore year to have a chance at being involved. Okay.
Right. Statistically, I mean, it can still happen your senior year, but statistically, it's your film has to be better than anyone that they've looked at and substantially better, because let's assume that they knew of someone from some point in their sophomore year, and that student athlete had maybe they came to see him during the spring evaluation period during the sophomore year. They were at camp as a junior. They've seen the junior film. They've made the offer. Okay, and now they continue to recruit this athlete, and they come visit them again during the spring evaluation period of the junior year. Well, now we're talking about a 12 to 15 month relationship. So they've spent the X amount of time, X amount of dollars, are committed to this kid, made this offer, and then they get your kid's information, who they don't know. So let's just take it as a relationship. If you've been dating the same boy or girl in high school for 12 to 15 months, how hard is it to dump them to go out with a boy or girl that you've known for 2 weeks?
Right. So you want to start building these relationships relatively early in the process.
Right.
Especially, and that seems like maybe it's at the highest level, though. I mean, what if you have an athlete that's not the best on the team? He's the third best.
Right.
But you think they're still pretty good. But let's talk a little bit about
let's take a middle of the
D2
road,
or
Division
D3
II.
or
Sure.
something like that.
I would still start at a minimum the junior year.
Okay.
Because what they're going to wait for is to see what trickles down from D1 to them at D2. Having said that, they have camps. They want to see who's interested, because they actually have to go through a larger pool of numbers to find their kids than a Division I program, because Division I is sought after. Right? Division IIs aren't as sought after as Division I, which means that 1,500 to 2,500 kids may transition from 2,500 to 4,000, 5,000 kids. So it becomes tougher for them to identify, right? And they also have kind of, I would say, a financial restriction, because Division I scholarships in football, for example, aren't the same as Division II. Football, it's what's called head count, one kid, one full ride. Room, board, books, tuition, and fees. At Division II, it's called equivalency. I mean, a scholarship equivalent to the cost normally of tuition, which is only about half the total cost of going to college.
So you're saying a Division II scholarship, the value of that is substantially less than a Division I scholarship.
Correct.
And what about the value of a Division III scholarship?
There are none. No athletic scholarships at Division III at all, any sport. No exceptions.
Okay, so Division III doesn't even offer scholarships.
No. You can go to Oshkosh and play football, and someone else can go to Oshkosh and not play football or any other sport. Doesn't matter. And whatever they're asked to pay is what you're asked to pay.
All right, so there is
nothing.
There's no official benefit. Some additional benefits if you're Division III in a few minutes. All right, so let's say you feel like you're behind. You thought you're learning this process a little late. Maybe you're just listening to it now and you're a parent of a junior and you're saying, oh my goodness, we were supposed to be doing this. And I mean, how do you get caught up? What things would you do? Or maybe even have a senior? I mean, when is it over, so to speak?
It's a hard question to answer as to when it's over. If you're realistic about maybe the potential level of play that you can reach to at this time based on what might be available, regardless of ability, it's maybe never too late as a personal guideline, unless I've seen somebody's film and see how special they could be and are just completely overlooked. I'm probably not even thinking second semester senior year.
Okay.
Everything needs to most likely happen first semester senior year, because even the admission windows are going to close regardless of the fact that you're an athlete, right?
Okay. What about the walk-on? I mean, I hear people say that. It's like, yes, I'm a good athlete, but my parents are saying I need to focus on my studies. So what I'm going to do is find the school that's a good fit, and then I'm going to show up at the walk-on time and try and become a player on the team.
Sure. The walk-on procedure, no matter what level, coaches prefer to win because that's how they keep their job. It would be great to walk on and be part of the program, but the reality is they still want to at least know who you are, build some type of rapport and or relationship, because they're putting kind of I don't want to say their reputation, but their ability to make money on the line, because if they aren't successful, they get fired. And because of that, the higher the level you attain to walk on at, the more work you have to do to actually make that happen. In any circumstance, and almost by definition, if you go Division III, you're a walk-on because there's no money. You need to make sure that you're evaluated, recruited, and have built a relationship.
Okay, so even if let's say you're a senior right now and you feel like you're late in the game, and you think you're going to be walking on in 3 months from now, it wouldn't hurt to at least have contact with a coach and let them know you plan to walk on and give them your resume and do what you can with the hopes that it might make a difference.
Right. Well, if you showed up at IBM's door today and said, give me a job, what's likely to happen? You're probably not going to get the job.
Right.
I mean, it's the same kind of thought process here. Okay, I'd like to play football. Well, you hear stories of people showing up. I want to play volleyball, and they turn out to be a great kid in the college. Can't believe it. Okay, those are few and far in between. Okay, the reality is even the walk-on is recruited, and some of it's due to NCAA restrictions on roster size. Some of it's due to just how a specific program likes to recruit and bring kids in. I have a young lady that's going to Iowa, chose not to really pursue basketball at the Division III or II level because Iowa was a better fit for her long-term academically. But she didn't want to give up on basketball. Well, Iowa holds what they call gray shirt tryouts. So there's probably 60, 70 girls just hoping to be a practice player. So maybe that can happen, but if you want to be a legitimate part of the team, it's like anything else. You want them to know who you are. You want to introduce yourself, like you said, build relationships, build rapport.
All right. So let's kind of transition away from the marketing and building relationships, and let's talk a little bit about the prize. We do a good job, and we do win a Division I scholarship.
Right.
Okay. I know there's differences depending on the sport and so forth. Can you give me a little bit of that?
Sure. Most sports there's defined as kind of revenue or non-revenue. It's more like money making versus Olympic sports. So you can receive a full ride in volleyball. You can receive a full ride in basketball, both men and women. You can receive a full scholarship in football. You don't have that same potential, if you will, in wrestling. It doesn't exist in hockey, in track and field, whereas you can get something more close to a full ride in cross country. The separation is what we had talked about before, head count sport, which is a full scholarship, one athlete, one scholarship, room, board, books, tuition, and fees, versus an equivalency, which is subject then to basically the cost of tuition. And it's then divided amongst a cap. Okay, so you may have a cap in soccer if you're fully funded to, and this is off the top of my head, I want to say it's like 14 or 15 in women's soccer.
Okay, so they're allowed to give 14 scholarships?
I believe that's correct.
So there's only 14 girls. How many are on a typical soccer team?
I've seen rosters now in the 30s at higher levels.
So half will get a scholarship and half won't, is what you're telling me?
Well, what they might do is they might give somebody tuition and say room and board or books. Okay, so you can have a top tier of athletes that's getting, let's say a full ride. That leaves 10 for the rest of the 25 girls. that are out there. And then they'll kind of portion it down based on playing time that they'll perceive them to receive, maybe years in the program. You may see somebody with just books.
Okay,
or
so you're
a
saying
semester.
that not every scholarship is the same, is what you're saying.
No, because it's an equivalency scholarship, unlike a head count where it's one kid, one scholarship, now they can be broken down into quarters, halves.
Okay, so they have 14 total scholarships to give out.
Yep.
So they could give out 14 full scholarships or 28 half scholarships or some combination so that it all adds up to their cap.
Right. Well, the problem is it really can't be 14 full, because if it's only based on tuition and you give someone tuition, room, board, books, and fees, they actually are eating up 2.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So it's
so 14 becomes
they
12.
They could give 14 full tuition.
Correct.
Or they could give 28 half tuition.
Correct.
But what sometimes happens is the superstars get not just tuition, but they get tuition and room and board. So that might use up 2 full scholarships for one athlete, leaving less for the rest.
Right. So let's say we'll do easy math, right? There's 30 girls on a soccer program. And let's say the 4 best girls get everything covered. Okay. So that's 4 girls eating up 8 scholarships. That leaves 6 for the remaining 22.
Okay, and then some of them might get bigger pieces of those pies as well.
Correct.
Could be a half, a quarter, just a few $1,000s. However they want to do it, they can do it, right?
Right.
Within some guidelines, obviously.
Correct. The kicker is on the equivalency scholarship this is where your academics play a bigger role in the process. Beyond the fact that you are either qualified or not qualified.
Okay.
Because you can get a full ride by getting a combination scholarship between academics and athletics and get everything covered.
All right. Yeah, let's jump into that a little bit. So we've been very focused on the athletic scholarship. So what you just mentioned, and I think I want to focus on a little bit, is athletics may pay a piece, but you can, in the industry, what they call is stack that, and stack that with other scholarships, whether they're academic scholarships, need-based scholarships, and other things. Right. And that's where I end up working with a lot of athletes, where we know we're going to get something for soccer, let's say, but it's only $4,000 or $5,000 or $6,000.
Right.
How are we going to pay the balance? And that's a combination, again, of the overall college planning that we talk about in this podcast all the time. But you can stack that athletic piece with need-based aid, with merit aid, and with other things. So let's touch a little bit on academics, because people have heard that, I'm sure, if you're involved in athletics at all, that you need to be eligible. What does that mean?
Well, the NCAA has a sliding scale for Division I and Division II that defines if you're academically eligible. That scale is based on your core or overall, not your overall, but your core GPA. So they'll throw out health, they'll throw out PE, they'll throw out all of those types of classes and look at, did you take AP, what AP courses, what are your basic math courses, what basic science courses, all on down the line. And then they'll correspond it to your ACT and or SAT score. And that scale is actually provided for you in the NCAA Guide for College-Bound Student Athletes. So you could, in theory, if you have a high enough core, get like a 15 on your ACT and be considered a qualified athlete. Now, you're not going to get any assistance on the academic side with that ACT, most likely, right? But you can still qualify. The difference between Division I and Division II is if you are a non-qualifier at Division I, you can't go into that program.
Okay.
But you can go in as a non-qualifier, or what they call a partial qualifier at Division II.
Okay, so you show up as a non-qualifier, do you get to play?
No, you have an automatic academic red shirt. So if you don't have the core GPA, but you have the right ACT, you can still play. If you don't have the qualifying ACT, but you have the correct, or inverted now, the non-qualifying ACT, but the correct GPA, you can go ahead and get in based on that.
Okay.
But you're going to sit for a year.
All right, so red shirt means you don't get to play, but you're part of the team.
I believe that you can train, but that's about it.
Okay, so then how do you lose your red shirt, so to speak, and get to play?
Well, you have to be academically qualified so it won't happen until next year.
Okay, so it's your college grades for a year is what they're looking at?
That is your college grades is what they're looking at. Yeah, you'll probably have what's called study table, which kind of is what it sounds like. You have mandatory study sessions every evening that are monitored by the program that you're playing for.
So academics is important even for athletes.
More important than they even realize. Because again, you could be, we'll go back to that basketball player, Damon Bailey. Okay, you could be the next big thing in your sport. If you're not academically qualified, it doesn't matter. Colleges are restricted. Their hands are tied. There's nothing they can do. You don't make it, you don't play, you don't even get in.
Wow. Okay, so you'd have to have at least the minimum academics, and if you have strong academics, that makes you more stackable.
Correct.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about Division III. You said there's no scholarships available, but we've got these other two pieces of the puzzle. And I know, from experience and working with you and working on some joint students and so forth, where at the Division III, you may not get the official athletic scholarship, but it may be a feather in your cap when colleges are trying to decide if they should pursue you for other reasons, like your academics or your other talents. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Sure. The one thing people have to understand, I've had kids say, I'm already playing at a college level now for my high school. Okay, I can tell you that's not the case for most every athlete at the Division III level. Even at the Division III level, for the most part, these were the best kids on their team. And obviously they're most dedicated because they're still playing. Okay, you may come from a very strong program where there is maybe that possibility, but the reality is you'll be a transitioning 18-year-old playing 20, 21, 22-year-olds. Okay, so the level of play is a lot higher than people understand or even think about at Division III. Okay, it's more likely to see a freshman succeed at Division III, but it's not as much as people think because, I'll throw football out there again. Only 5.6% of the over 1.1 million football players overall and about the 300,000 in a class will transition from high school to college.
Okay, so you're saying out of 100...
About 300,000 in a class. Only 5.6% of those kids will move from high school to college athletics.
So if you took a look at a typical high school team that has 50 kids on it, statistically you're saying that two will go on to college, typically.
Yeah. And in Wisconsin, everyone thinks about the state schools. Well, the state schools have a roster cap of 110. So if they've already got 90 kids on roster after graduation and you're coming in, and it's not untold to hear that, say, Whitewater will have about 180 freshmen coming in.
Okay.
Because kids just show up for 20 spots. So then now you're part of the 160 that isn't on the roster. What are you doing?
Right. Now, where I've seen athletics kind of used as a kind of a leverage point is at the private schools, where it's a private school, they're Division III, or maybe they're not even part of the NCAA. So now, so they would have different rules. But now the athlete is saying, I'm a good fit candidate for your school, plus I want to play on your team.
Right.
And I think if they play their cards right, they could kind of work with the coach and maybe get a little bit of leverage at the admissions and financial aid office?
Correct. Well, I'll use St. Norbert College as one, I'm an alumni, and two, I coach there. Okay. And I'll give you an example of what we could do for a student athlete that we're interested in. This person's probably not a great example because academically he was actually denied admission initially. But as a targeted recruit, we do have a relationship as a coach with admissions, at least in our case we did. And we asked for an appeal on his decision for application and admission. They did appeal it. They did then approve him for admission with the understanding that he would have to go to summer school. So I contacted admission again. I thanked them and I said, the problem with him playing summer school up here is he can't play or train in the summer back home. So when he gets to me in the fall, he won't really be ready to play. Is there anything you can do? So admission came back to me and said, well, this is what we'll do. He's admitted. He's automatically on academic probation. The great thing about academic probation for him is it was a 2.0.
So he had to maintain a 2.0 to stay eligible to both play and remain at the college.
Correct. You should be able to do that, even if you were denied admission. Okay. Then we were able to get him a 50% discount on all costs.
All right. So they were able to provide some sort of scholarships and so forth to defray the cost. So he was able to leverage admission and leverage finances.
Correct.
Because you as the coach wanted him.
Right. When he ended up starting as a true freshman. I mean, that's, we knew what we wanted. We worked as best we could to help him transition. And he did the work academically when he got there.
All right. So let's assume that, and this is another interesting little tidbit, let's assume that as a sophomore, he decided he doesn't want to play soccer anymore and he wants to focus on his studies. Does he lose all those benefits?
No, he gets to keep every one.
Right. And the trick there, and the reason I'm asking that question is that's all tied to academics and other things. So it can't be tied to athletics because Division III does not offer athletic scholarships.
Sure, and that's an issue the Ivy League schools have. A lot of kids will use their athletics as a vehicle to get into an Ivy League school and then stop playing.
Right. Okay. Yeah, because admission standards are so
less
challenging at an Ivy League school that if you're an athlete, they'll bend the rules a little bit on admission standards.
Correct.
Get your foot in the door, and then you walk away from athletics and they don't throw you out. So now you just go on as a ongoing student.
Which means they much like the private schools like St. Norbert, like Carthage, like Carroll in Wisconsin, you have to have a larger pool that you're sifting through to find the kids that will eventually end up in your program. And I'll give you another example. We did work with a student athlete from the Wausau area who was a solid athlete. He's maybe honorable mention all conference, so good, not great. Not the big 6'6", 290-pound guy that everybody dies for. He's more like 6'2" and about 235. But because he marketed himself correctly and was able to generate leverage for himself, he, to our understanding, went to St. Norbert without loans and is paying $7,500 a year.
Wow. So he got a pretty substantial discount.
Somewhere in the range of, 75%?
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, let's transition, I guess, one more time. And let's say you think you might be that Division III athlete. Obviously, big schools like University of Wisconsin and North Carolina and all these big name programs out there, and Stanford's and Yale, and they have some recruiting budgets and so forth. But what if you're a D3 type of athlete, where you'd like to play and your sport's not all that exciting either? It's, like I said, lacrosse or skiing I know there's a few sports out there like bowling. I think maybe they've completely transitioned away from, but there's a lot of fringe, or less popular sports than football and basketball and baseball. So if you're involved in those programs, and again, in working with you, I know the answer to this, but explain a little bit about why you might cast your net, further than your local area and kind of get your name out there.
Sure. Well, again, the concept behind marketing is to increase awareness. And why you want to increase awareness is obviously to generate leverage. So we'll go back to the guy who ended up at St. Norbert. He could have gone to Illinois College. He could have gone to Beloit. He could have gone to Carroll. He could have gone to Knox. He could have gone to Simpson in Iowa. He could have gone over to St. Thomas in the Minneapolis, Twin Cities area. So what happens is if all these people are aware of you, evaluated you, academically know that you fit, and you take the time to get to know them, build a relationship, take visits, get financial aid offers, then you become the person who's in control of the process. Because St. Norbert will toss you an offer and say, well, you can pay this. And you say to St. Norbert, well, Illinois College said I can pay this. Can you match it or beat it? And then you say to all of them, well, St. Thomas did this. Well, this is what Knox did. Lake Forest has just come in. This is what they've done. And then next thing you know, you're hopefully creating a bidding war. Right. To help reduce your costs.
Right. So in order to create a bidding war, though, the challenge is you have to get in front of a lot of schools.
As many as possible.
Yeah. And I guess what you've taught me in the past a little bit is, especially the smaller regional schools, and there's
a lot
probably 40 schools in like Chicago as an example.
Right.
5 we've heard of and 35 most people haven't. But those 35 have athletic programs. They recruit heavily in Chicago, but they're not going to hear about someone from Texas, let's say.
Right.
Unless that person in Texas
reaches out or uses a marketing service.
Right. Reaches out, somehow gets their name in front of them.
Right.
Okay. Great. Well, I think we've covered the concept pretty well here, and I'm going to wrap it up here. But why don't you spend a couple minutes telling us a little bit more about what you do and how you do it and what the benefits are to actually outsourcing some of this to someone like you?
Sure. Everything we do is predicated on the concept of actually, through marketing, improving not just the ability to obtain a scholarship if you're that good, or to obtain an academic scholarship if you're that good. We actually want to help change what we consider a major problem. And a major problem is the actual graduation rates of athletes and student athletes. Nationally, both of them hover around, depending on the division and the sport, around 54%. So in essence, you have about a 50% opportunity to graduate with a college degree. It's kind of like a marriage. You don't enter the marriage expecting it to fail. Well, you shouldn't enter college expecting to fail. We believe that correctly marketing the student athlete and understanding the process and making sure that you're evaluated and a broad base of opportunities, that you're going to end up making the right decision. Okay? So the way we do it is straightforward. Each of our athletes that we're involved with will have a personal website. It's a one-stop recruiting shop for a college coach. They can do a full academic evaluation because we can put transcripts and ACT results on there. We can put letters of recommendation. They can verify your ability to play because we will, if you have video of your particular sport, we can put video on that. Right, we can put photos on there. There's a personal statement section, so you can let people kind of know who you are. We're always trying to direct them back, and it's a joint marketing program because through that website, which is built around the email of the family and or the student athlete, the family and the student athlete have the ability to directly market to the end user, which is the college coach. In the non-revenue sports specifically, is very much a joint process because we're considered a third party that will then directly market the athlete as well.
Okay.
And then the marketing piece comes with a guidance piece. And that guidance piece is myself or a representative that you may have hired through us to work with. And our job is to kind of help answer your questions, help guide you, help direct you, help use the experience that we have to help you better understand. Like you started, how do I know if I'm being recruited? I've got generic mail. What does it mean? What should be going on? What are the benchmarks sophomore year, junior year, senior year? How should I be getting X, Y, and Z?
Right.
And it's trying to help families really have a better understanding of the process, but kind of see the process the way we see it.
Right. I mean, from my side of the fence, and I've never been an athlete, and my kids probably never will be an athlete, but having someone that has the experience of saying, hey, I've seen these letters before. You're not being recruited. You're just on a mailing list. This letter is important. This coach is acting like he wants you. You absolutely have to get back to him today and do this and say this. Maybe you want to pursue all the D2 and D1 colleges out there, or maybe you want to pursue all the D2 and D3 colleges out there. Kind of building a plan with some expertise, then executing the plan with some expertise, and then getting your questions answered with some expertise. I think those are the three key areas that I think people should get some help in. And then also you can dovetail that with all the other stuff that you're doing, the ACT test planning and financial aid planning and all the other pieces. Unfortunately, at a busy time, athletics is one more thing on the pile for most athletes. Right.
And it can be, if it's going well, it's really busy. Because once the evaluation period is done and you're into a contact period, you should be getting phone calls. You should be getting inboxed on Facebook. You should see coaches following you and direct messaging you on Twitter, right? I mean, these are a lot of things. You should be getting invitations to junior days. You should be getting official visit offers. I mean, this can be a lot. If I were to have taken up every coach that wanted my son to go to a soccer camp, we would not have been home for probably 60 days. We would have just been going straight. So it's kind of understanding kind of where to pick your spots and knowing kind of where to spend your money. Everyone's got X amount of time and resources committed to the process, including the college coaches, which they have restrictions. So again, it's trying to be a little bit more educated than the next person about the process and kind of how to work it and what makes sense.
Right. And so I think another way to look at it is hiring somebody to help you, especially if you're already busy and you're doing well in your own financial life. It makes a lot of sense. It doesn't make sense to learn this whole process and execute it when there's already experts out there that can do it better, faster, and give you the guidance you need. If you are considering athletics, if I were you, I would seriously consider finding Erik or someone like him that can help you do it well and do it right.
Well, marketing works, right? I mean, you and I know what multi-meal is, but if we ask a high school athlete, they're going to look at us and be like, 9 times out of 10, they have no clue. But if I ask them, well, what's Mountain Dew? They're going to think I'm nuts, right? And
Exactly.
That's really the difference, right? There's multi-meal, which is it's there, it's been around, it's kind of the word of mouth scenario you brought up versus our thought process is why wouldn't I want to market? Because that seems to work in pretty much every aspect of the real world. The more you market, the better it is. And I know it works because last year my family saved about $2.1 million, which isn't too bad.
That's great. All right. We'll wrap things up. I will put links to Erik's website and all his Facebook and all the other things that
I'm on Twitter.
He's going to provide Twitter. So he's going to provide the whole list of whatever it is so that you can find him, connect with him, learn more if you'd like. And we'll sign off for now. And thank you, Erik.
Thank you.
All right, that was a great interview with Erik Lofdahl. Again, all the information will be available at the website. I hope you enjoyed listening, and as always, please pass this information along to anybody that you know that might benefit from it. You can like us on Facebook. You can subscribe at iTunes. We're available on Stitcher. There's lots of ways that you can plug in, so we would appreciate it if you would give us a rating in iTunes, and we'd also appreciate it if you could forward this to your friends and family and people that you know that have high school kids that are trying to figure out college. That's all for now. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Taming the High Cost of College podcast. Now it's time for you to take action. Head to tamingthehighcostofcollege.com for show notes, bonus content, and to leave feedback for Brad. The next step on your college journey starts now.
Brad Baldridge is a registered representative of Cambridge Investment Research and an investment advisor representative of Cambridge Investment Research Advisors, a registered investment advisor. Securities are offered through Cambridge Investment Research Incorporated, a broker-dealer and member of FINRA and SIPC. Brad owns two companies, Baldridge Wealth Management and Baldridge College Solutions. The Baldridge companies are not affiliated with Cambridge Investment Research.